Today we're talking about the possibility of a blockbuster trade between the Vancouver Canucks and the Seattle Kraken involving Bo Horvat. We'll discuss if it could happen, how it could work, and should either team pull this off. We also have news on the Detroit Red Wings and potential deadline deals we may or may not see there. We also have news from the NHL waiver wire. Caufield is done for the season in Montreal, and it's tonight Bruce Boudreau's last game as coach of the Canucks. We'll discuss that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. So let's get started with news from the NHL waiver wire. We have yet another player on waivers. This time it's New York Rangers forward Johnny Brzezinski. He's appeared in 16 games for the Blue Shirts this year, putting up 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points. Obviously, the Rangers do have an excess number of players on the NHL roster right now dealing with some injuries. So as players come back, some of these guys will need to go through that to go down to the American Hockey League. So Johnny Brzezinski is that player today. We'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if he's been claimed. I would suspect most likely he probably clears and goes down to the AHL. We have some injury news from around the NHL, including Max Pacioretty in Carolina. Of course, we did talk about the injury in the past couple of days, but we now know 100% that he is indeed done for the season. He's dealing with the exact same injury that he had before with his Achilles tear. So that's certainly bad news. Like I said, I do wonder what this means for his career, and I do wonder what this means as well for the Hurricanes. Obviously, that's going to create some LTIR possibilities that they could use to replace him as a deadline acquisition, but he's also a pending unrestricted free agent too, so you have to wonder for a guy who's got a good track record of being a proven goal scorer in the NHL for a long time, but certainly, the last couple of years has been injury prone, so I don't know what this means for the future for him. I'm sure if he's able to continue playing, he'll be able to get signed somewhere, but it's certainly going to be short term and not nearly the amount of money he was used to making before. So we'll have to see what this all means for him going forward. Penguins forward Kasperi Kapanen is going to be out for a few weeks as well. He's now dealing with a lower body injury. The Boston Bruins today announced that Thomas Nosek is going to be out for about a month or so with a fractured foot. Obviously, the Bruins probably won't miss a beat. The NHL's top team this year has dealt with a ton of injuries and adversity this year, and they just seem to continue battling through it without really missing a beat. So I would suspect it's not going to be a big deal for them. The New York Islanders are going to be without Cal Clutterbuck for a while as well. He's out indefinitely with another injury. They have recalled Aatu Räty, who was up before, appeared in a handful of games, and had a good showing. They did end up sending back William Dufour to the American Hockey League only after 1 game. So he's back down and Räty's back up. So hopefully we get to see some strong two-way play from him with a roster spot open in that regard. In Montreal, Canadiens forward Cole Caufield. We got news today out of the blue, surprised a lot of people, that Cole is done for the season. He's going to be having shoulder surgery and is looking at a long recovery process, usually 4 to 6 month recovery time, and that's going to put him out for the rest of the year, and he'll hopefully be able to get this done in time now so that he'll be able to hopefully have his summer training and get back next year to a full healthy player when training camp rolls around. But nobody even knew he was dealing with anything. There's been nothing that's happened in the last game or two that's really kind of set anybody off to think he was dealing with this. But according to his agent, Pat Brisson, who did a radio interview today on TSN, he says that Caufield's been dealing with this for about 2 to 3 months. So if you look back, there was a game against Calgary earlier in the season. I think that might be where things happen. Hard to say exactly, but certainly Caufield is a huge part of that Montreal Canadiens offense. Was well on pace to be probably well over 40 goals. He might have had a shot at 50 if he was going to be healthy and play the whole season. So certainly that's not good news from that perspective. But really the Montreal Canadiens have been sinking in the standings. If there's a way to put a positive spin or a silver lining, it's certainly going to help with their efforts to tank in the standings. A lot of teams are, certainly you're going to wonder if they're tanking intentionally for the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. Montreal have 2 possible picks as well. I mean, if the Florida Panthers don't miss the playoffs, they're going to have 2 picks in the lottery. If the Panthers get back in it, they'll still have a second first rounder, but obviously it's going to be a lower selection. But still, Montreal, had a decent start to the year and have slowly kind of stepped back. They've dealt with a lot of injuries this year, and this is the latest in that. But obviously having Caufield not be there, I suspect it's going to be that much more challenging for them to have offense and score some goals and have some wins. So We'll see where this goes, but it could lead to possibly a high pick, which could long-term be good for the franchise, even though it's not personally good for Caufield to deal with the injury and have the surgery. Jonathan Drouin is officially back on injury reserve as well. Like I said before, I don't know that Drouin has much of a future in Montreal. I don't know if we're going to see him traded at the deadline. I think the Habs would love to. I'm not sure there's really going to be interest. He's really not played that much, really, if you look at the past couple of years. I honestly wonder if Jonathan Drouin's time in not only Montreal, but the NHL in general might be up at the end of the year. We'll have to wait and see where that goes, but not a lot of promise on that front. And also, is tonight the last night for Bruce Boudreau to be the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks? There's a lot of reports that the Canucks are set to make a coaching change, that Rick Tocchet is essentially already been hired for, I guess, I'm not sure if that's official or not behind the scenes, but word is he's already in Vancouver as well, and the Canucks don't play tomorrow, and it's believed that they're going to have a press conference on Monday and make the full announcement of Boudreau being out and Tocchet being in. That is the speculation right now. Obviously Boudreau's been emotional, talking to the media the past couple days. He's a lifelong hockey guy who's been involved with it as a player to coaching. He coached, he put in so many years of coaching before he ever even got to coach in the NHL. He has a terrific record, doesn't have a lot of playoff success under his belt, but he's got a ton of regular season success. Just seems like an all-around good guy. Like I said before, I understand that the fact that the Canucks are not being successful, and this is a results-oriented business, and when the results don't come, changes come with it. I get that 100%. I just don't like how Jim Rutherford has been so publicly bashing of his coach and how the team plays, and just felt the need to unnecessarily, in my opinion, go out of his way to criticize and bash them in the media. There's just no need of it. At the very least, even if you don't think it's working, and if you're not happy with the results, you don't need to be that unprofessional. At least show them some professional courtesy and respect in that regard. I think at the same time, fans and the ownership could be saying the same thing about Rutherford and Alvin, who really haven't done a whole lot. I'm starting to wonder if they created a bit of a toxic environment. I know I heard some NHL insiders saying one of the main reasons why Rick Tocchet is going to be their guy is that they need somebody to keep JT Miller in line. Isn't that crazy? Their player who had 99 points last year, it was obviously up for a huge new contract, who they ended up getting done over Bo Horvat because they lowballed their captain, who's been there for so long, which is a big part of this organization. And now after Miller gets his contract, he's not living up to it. And he's been more so because there's already was speculation about him being what he was like in the room, and that there was not some tension back there, a little cliquey at times, but that's not completely unusual. It just seems to be gotten worse now that he's got his contract. It seems like he's kind of taken more of a mentality to try to run the room, and it just, there's a lot of talk out there that Miller's a problem, and not only on the ice, but off the ice as well. And if you just signed this guy to a 7-year contract extension, and you have to change your coach and bring in a particular guy because you think he can be the one to handle your star player, that's ridiculous, and that's on Rutherford. So, really, I don't understand why he feels the need to bash Boudreau so much. I think we could be bashing him just as much, not only for his conduct, but for the moves they've made. They're not working out here so far, and I think he's underestimated the job that's ahead of him in Vancouver. Obviously, he already said it's, he thought it was minor surgery that he was getting himself into, and now he's saying it's major surgery. Obviously, it's a bit of a wake-up call that the team needs a lot more help and change than he ever envisioned before he actually officially took and accepted that job. So if this is the last night for Bruce Boudreau in Vancouver, I'm sure there'll be more of Bruce there in his chance. The fans seem to have Bruce's back. I won't be shocked if this is not the end of the road for Bruce as a coach in the NHL. I think a lot of other teams have taken notice, and they know he's had a long history there with great results. So I won't be shocked if another team decides to give him an opportunity. I also wouldn't be shocked if Bruce decides to take some time, because I think this has been stressful, more so than usual. I think being an NHL coach is stressful on a good day. I think it's been extremely higher level than usual, and probably emotional on him as well, just because of how it's been handled and the rumors and having been so publicly known that your job is that you're going to be fired for days and weeks ahead. Can you imagine going to work every day knowing that and knowing who your replacement is and listen to your bosses talk behind your back to people that's making stuff go public. Like, it's embarrassing. It's I don't know. I'm extremely disappointed in the Canucks. And it's going to be awfully difficult to offer that team any support moving forward. On to the trade rumors of the day. I want to take a quick look at Vancouver. And then we're going to talk about the Canucks again with Bo Horvat. The Red Wings obviously still don't have any kind of deals. There's rumors that there's nowhere near a new contract for Tyler Bertuzzi or Captain Dylan Larkin. Of course, we know Alex Nedeljkovic is there as well. Same with Jacob Verana in the minors. They're going to be looking to get moved as well if there's an opportunity for them to do so. But Bertuzzi and Larkin are getting a lot of attention from NHL reporters and insiders wondering what their future holds. I'm still not convinced that the Red Wings are going to trade Larkin. It's hard to see him being anywhere else, being a Michigan boy. He spent all of his prominent hockey life in that state. It's really difficult to picture him playing on another NHL franchise. And then even though they're far apart, I would think that that hopefully they figure things out there. Bertuzzi, on the other hand, I think there's a greater chance he could be dealt. There seems to be interest from a variety of teams around the league in his services. Obviously, he can be a pretty solid goal scorer and offensive play driver when he's healthy. So we'll see what happens in Detroit. Certainly some players worth watching. I don't know that we can really say there's anything imminent or any set rumors of what's happening. Just that they're nowhere near a contract. And when that's the case, there's always rumors circulating about your future. Now, could we see a blockbuster deal with Bo Horvat going to Seattle? Of course, the Kraken come to the NHL. We expect at some point there's going to be a good rivalry between Vancouver and Seattle, given the close proximity to the two cities, even though they're technically in different countries. They're very, very close, and there's a lot of commute and travel between the two. A lot of fans can go back and forth. I think long-term, that could be a tremendous NHL rivalry down the road. I think we need to have both teams kind of in the same kind of situation, competitively speaking, at the same time for a while before they can really get that rivalry really revved up. Just like there were times when the Battle of Ontario was dull because, the Leafs were winning for a while, the Senators weren't. Back in the earlier times when they were both more competitive, it was more intense, you could say. But same thing when you get Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Rangers, Islanders, the Battle of California. Like, rivalries all across the NHL. When one team is top of the standings, one team's at the bottom or something like that, it tends to lose in some intensity. But at some point, that rivalry has a ton of potential. And what better way to kick it off with a blockbuster deal? We know the Kraken have taken major steps forward this year in their second season in the NHL, and NHL insiders are indicating that they are going to be a potential player for Horvat, and they have a ton of legitimate interest. We know that Ron Francis, obviously, a former two-way center himself with a lot of upside, would absolutely love a guy like Horvat and would fit nicely into that lineup. We know that the depth at center is probably one of the weaknesses in that team, and really looking at what they have, right now Matty Beniers is playing probably a higher role than he should be. Now, he's doing pretty well with it, mind you, but if he could play a little lower in the lineup, to be honest, that would really, I think, tremendously benefit his career and his development as well. Bringing a guy like Horvat to Seattle would not be something they would do strictly as a rental like some teams would be interested in. If Seattle had any able to pull this off, they're going to want to get an extension done and keep him with the Kraken for a long time. That would be the way they would do it to make sense. Now, one suggestion that came, this is only a suggestion, not really a rumor per se, but it was being discussed online. John Boudreau of ESPN, made a suggestion that maybe they should offer Shane Wright, the 4th overall pick from last year's draft, their first pick. Shane Wright's been a player who obviously fell to Seattle at number 4. He was expected to go number 1, did not. A lot of things happened there. He's gone back to junior, had a real solid World Junior Championship, captaining Team Canada to the gold medal at the World Juniors. He's doing well in the OHL, but when he was in the NHL, you could tell he needed some more time, wasn't quite ready. He's missed a lot of hockey in the past couple of years as well because of the pandemic too, so giving him some time would be great. Now, could he step into the NHL next year and be a legitimate top 6 center, or at least a top 9 center? I think it's a real possibility, but this year he wasn't quite where he needed to be just yet. So obviously, Vancouver, if they had a chance to get a guy like Shane Wright in return for Horvat, do you think that they should just say, yes, let's do it and pull the trigger? I would be inclined to say, absolutely. If you take a look at what they've been saying in Vancouver, what Rutherford and Alvin want, they don't want necessarily just draft picks. They want young players who can step into their lineup and have an impact right away. They're willing to talk about some young players who haven't worked out in other franchises. He is not like that, though, Shane Wright. He's barely touched the surface in the NHL, so you can't say he hasn't worked out, but he does have a ton of potential here to really take this up and be a solid top 6 centerman down the road. Maybe not a franchise player like we could see with some other guys like Connor Bedard, but still a really, really good, effective two-way centerman. Essentially, a similar type of player like Bo Horvat has been throughout his career. At the very least, if he becomes another comparable player to Horvat and you replace him with a much younger version of himself, to me, that's pretty good on a trade front. Now, that may not be the only pieces involved, but if the Kraken come calling and they're expected to be having somewhat serious conversations around this, and they did offer Shea Wright, I think you have to take that trade. Now, should Seattle do that is the question. They're going to get Bo Horvat, who's at a much later stage of his career than Wright. He's able to contribute at a higher level right now, whereas Wright's going to need some time to ease into that. Matty Beniers is obviously playing at a higher level. He's a little bit further ahead of Wright. Obviously, he played college hockey, which I think might have made a bit of a difference. He's a year older as well, so he's had an extra year. He didn't miss all that time that Shea Wright did. Obviously he played more games, so he's just a little bit further ahead of the game and in development right now. So certainly Beniers is ready for that top 6 role. Wright seems like he's going to need a little bit of time. Next year we'll see, but at the same time, if Seattle wants to be serious about taking big steps forward, competing in the playoffs, and staying where they are right now and moving forward, adding a guy like Horvat would be an absolutely huge upgrade and great addition to that team. But then they don't have a guy like Wright to fall back on. So I don't know. If I'm Seattle, I really do think I consider this trade. If you take a look at it, it's tough to say 100% what the right thing to do here is, because you don't want to give up on a player and see them become a star somewhere else. What if you take the Horvat trade, you do it, you move Wright, you get him on your team, you sign him to a big contract? What if he becomes a 50 to 60 point player and a 20 goal scorer for the rest of his career, and you don't see that 40 plus goal scorer that he's expected to be this year? It is a contract year. You have to be careful. It's difficult to duplicate that, especially as he gets older. He's probably not going to be that year after year after year, and you may be regretful down the road if Shea Wright becomes that 30, 40 goal scorer with a solid two-way play in Vancouver, and he's in his early 20s tearing it up. You might really have trade regret in that sense. I don't know. It's a gamble, because you don't know where Wright's going to become, and you don't know what Horvat's going to continue to be. It's challenging on both fronts. I don't know. It's a very, very, very interesting trade proposition. I'll give them that. John Boudreau was, I think, just stirring things up online, but I got a lot of people talking, and the fact is that the Seattle has been a legitimate team mentioned by the Connected NHL Insider, so we know there is legitimate interest. But would they offer Wright? I'm not really sure how else they would get this deal done, to be honest. If they're not trading Beniers, that we can say for certain. So if they offered Wright, is that going to get the deal done? Does this deal make sense for both clubs? I know it's hard to come to a certain conclusion, but it's certainly lots of fun to think about. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll talk about it further. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe, stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.